it must be possible and remain possible to criticize Ariel Sharon and his warmongering policies without being labeled as anti-Semitic by supporters of Mr. Sharon and his policies. I categorically refuse that. I fear that hardly anyone among the anti-Semites who unfortunately exist in Germany and whom we must fight against gained more support than Mr. Sharon and in Germany than Mr. Friedman with his intolerant, spiteful and arrogant manner. This cannot continue.
The trigger for the attack was an article in Stern magazine in which Friedman urged the FDP leadership to dissociate itself from Möllemann if necessary.
I have the quote here again. So I'm afraid that hardly anyone provides more support to the anti-Semites than Mr. Friedman with his intolerant and spiteful manner. I mean, to what extent was it clear to you? Was the speculation that with this wording, especially with the word hostile, you might be catering to a typical, how can one say, anti-Jewish cliché? Were you aware of that? Were you conscious of that?
First of all, I have been labeled an anti-Semite by Mr. Friedman 15 times, every time I have criticized Sharon. Even the Holy Father would not presume to tell the CDU that someone must be excluded because they support abortion. But Mr. Friedman knows who can be in the FDP.
Unexpected support from an old friend from the north.
We are not at the point yet where Mr. Friedman can choose who is a member of a Democratic Party and who is not.
Anyone who attributes the rise of anti-Semitism to a German Jew has lost all sense. Insults, offense, and hurts every democratic German. That's why I have filed a criminal complaint for incitement.
Well, Mr. Möllemann, but if you, of course, say, on one hand you criticize Sharon, and on the other hand, or not on the other, but on the same side, show a great understanding for the Palestinians and have done so in very strong statements, where you say you can understand those who try to defend themselves even in the land of the aggressor. Is that the right language?
Dear Ms. Christensen, those who occupy other people's countries must know that they will resist. There are no Palestinian tanks in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. There are Israeli ones in Palestine, and Palestine is being denied its future. I am strictly against all attacks on civilians. There is a law that says the civilian population must be spared, even in military conflicts. But I am not talking away the cause.
A strategy by the FDP to fish for votes on the far right cannot work. It would not only be wrong, but it would also abandon liberal identity and conviction. And anyone who toys with this idea must know that they are ruining the FDP, because then the liberals will leave.
I specifically appeal, I admit, for the votes of all Christians, Muslims, Jews, and people of other faiths in Germany who are committed to a just and fair peace in the Middle East. That does not only mean for the right of Israel, but for the same right of the Palestinians. And there are millions who think that way. And if they vote for us, I am very pleased.
I cannot at all come to terms with the situation that today, 57 years after the Holocaust, we are confronted with such a problem that a leading politician tells a leading member of a Jewish organization that by pointing out anti-Semitism, by highlighting anti-Semitic remarks, he is causing anti-Semitism to spread here, which is intolerable.
Even Sharon must understand the Palestinian is an equal human being. He must also be able to live in his own state, and he's preventing that so far.
At our Mannheim Party conference, we stated clearly that there is no place for anti-Semitic tendencies among us, that this also applies to the voters. We are a liberal party, and anyone who wants to go back to the 19th century has no place with us.
The United Nations must force him to return to the principles of international law, otherwise there will be a disaster in the Middle East. And then we will be involved. The German Chancellor is currently fantasizing about sending German troops there. We will get to that in a moment. That is terrible, that political actions are being taken.
That also wrongs people who have indeed broken taboos in the past to advance society. Möllemann does not advance society. He is a reactionary, a petty person, indeed a master of self-promotion. But even if he exploits and activates resentments, he has little to say. What do you want to achieve with that?
I want to discuss something that concerns people with...
What are you achieving for the government with that?
Honored Mr. Klose, we are here this evening for that very reason. It's quite duplicitous to say we should not discuss it publicly while we are sitting here. In any case, I do not want to conceal my standpoint on this issue.
If Möllemann is not an anti-Semite, then there are no anti-Semites. He is certainly against the Holocaust and finds the Nazis' measures against the Jews contemptible. But he has a problem with Jews and does not hesitate to provoke this resentment.
As long as Israel refuses to implement the UN resolutions. This is truly a drastic act of provocation. The international community decides in recent days. And Israel says we do nothing, we reject that. Let's do the job to the end, they say. That is indescribable. Of course, until then we must not deliver weapons. We deliver weapons with which the refugees in Jenin are crushed.
His departure from the Free Democratic Party came as a surprise even to his Wallendorf constituency. His last appearance there was in mid-March. Möllemann preempted an expulsion from the party. Visibly dejected, he bid farewell to the party that was his life.
I consider the policy that Ariel Sharon is implementing to be a threat to peace. I consider it to be contemptuous of humanity. As a German politician, one should also be able to express an opinion to a leading Israeli politician, just as they do towards us.
Mr. Jost, how did you receive it back then, when that statement was made? How did you follow it?
Yes, Mr. Möllemann is the ladle of German anti-Semitism. And accordingly, he also looks like it and smells brown.
Do you find it particularly intelligent, what you are presenting? Don't you find it incredibly unfair to immediately label someone who has a different opinion? This is the method practiced in Germany. Anyone who dares to call Mr. Karen what he is, namely, in my opinion, a war criminal, is an anti-Semite. I know from many green social democrats who share my criticism of Sharon and are suddenly surprised why their own people attack me. They say, Ben, strange, what he's saying is what we think too. I have now received 20,000 emails, faxes, letters within 10 days. Wherever I go, people say, Mr. Möllemann, thank God someone is finally saying what we all think, namely that this policy of Mr. Sharon must end. They don't say anything against Jews, not against Mr. Sharon because he is Jewish, but because of his policy.
Did you ever really check 20,000 emails? Did you ever look to see who was involved? Was there nothing from the neo-Nazi camp? Was there never a letter that ended with Heil Möllemann? I
find that unbelievable. This kills freedom of speech. You can't do that. And the debate we're having here is carried out openly in every European country as a matter of course. Born in 1945, I have always strictly refused to discriminate against races or minorities. My friend Yasser Arafat is Semitic. How could I be anti-Semitic?
Well, I think I also want the... Yeah, you shouldn't be surprised if young neo-Nazis now come and say, aha, look here, Möllemann is saying it, if young neo-Nazis refer to you. Is that something you wish for? No, I don't wish for that. Percentages in any case? Fishing in troubled waters, Mr. Möllemann?
No, Mr. Beckmann, I am fighting for every vote.
Also in the camp?
No, I fight for every vote, but with the content of my party.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The former FDP top politician Jürgen Möllemann is dead. He died in Marl in North Rhine-Westphalia during a parachute jump. According to the Essen Public Prosecutor's Office, the main parachute detached from the 57-year-old's body for reasons that are still unclear.
Today at noon, we received the news of the death of our colleague Jürgen Möllemann. We mourn our deceased colleague.
A minute of silence in the Bundestag, the place where barely 3 hours earlier they had lifted the immunity of their colleague Möllemann. Green light for criminal investigations against someone who was among them for years, but in the end was visibly sitting apart.
I couldn't say anything the whole day until the evening. I talked with his wife, talked with my wife, because they naturally always ask themselves, Mochen, were there any signs that could have prompted you to do something else to prevent this, if in doubt? My wife and I took 14 days to let our entire life with Jürgen Möllemann pass in review, to clarify the question, did we overlook anything? And after a certain time, we agreed that it could not have been an accident.
Concern in the Free Democratic Party from the party leader to longtime companions.
In this hour, it is not about political differences, but about sympathy. Our deepest condolences go to his family, especially his wife and daughters. We are thinking of them.
The content that I currently associate with Guido Westerwelle is one of the highlights in this book, namely, that he is being blackmailed by Mossad. How did you come up with that? Mossad, the Israeli Secret Service.
Based on his own account. When he returned from his visit to Israel, he told us individually and collectively about his discussions and between two discussions with two high-ranking government officials. He had been put under so much pressure that he wondered where it could lead. He has...
Under pressure, what to do?
Yes, Anush. Unfortunately, he never told us in detail. In these reports he said, "You wouldn't believe, Mr. Möllemann, how they treated me, what they tried to demand from me, how they pressured me." Have exerted, especially in these very difficult times, Germany stands by Israel. We support Israel and we want to work closely together. We see ourselves as close friends and partners.
You write about extortions. The chapter is also titled The Extortion.
Yes, when I travel to a foreign country and have discussions there, and the government or members of a service put pressure on me, then that is extortion.
Extortion is something different for me. Namely that you have something against someone. That you insinuate, hint at, private things about Guido Westerwelle. That you... it's in the book.
No. Nothing with... I explicitly left this question open and said that he must clarify it. He did report that he was put under pressure.
I'm just saying that you imply blackmail. I've understood now. Is your word, not his. Secondly, what could they be holding over him? Some private things. At the moment, as I understand it, unless you explain it differently to me, it's first and foremost an allegation.
What's wrong? Then he said he's being regularly followed. But it sounds so dramatic. Let's say intelligence services, secret powers are after his life.
In truth, an example is supposed to be set. Who is allowed to think what in Germany and who is allowed to say what in Germany. I will continue to think what I want to think as a free Democrat, and I will continue to say what I want to say.